Hello, Dr. Jan. I'm
Hello.
sorry for, yeah, finally it worked.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it did. I just realized that I could copy and then paste it into Chrome because Safari was rejecting
yeah.
it. Look, I need to clear this
Okay,
up
great.
before we start. For you to do that
Yeah, we are
PR.
live.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right, we're
yeah,
live.
we're
So
live.
we're here.
Yeah,
So let's
yeah, we are
figure
here.
out what we're going to focus on today.
Yeah, yeah. We would like to talk to you about Sweden's role in this and also about this global military sting operation and educational project of humanity. And we have realized that you measure all this from your end, and that's really, really interesting for us.
Well,
Very welcome. You can
I
please
think you're making
introduce.
some assumptions. I think you're making some assumptions. So spell it out exactly what you think I can talk about.
Could we just begin with the introduction, please, for
Uh,
the Swedish audience?
oh, by all means.
Yeah, we have heard you in several interviews and we find it very, very interesting. Could you please just give a quick introduction of yourself and get to know the Swedish audience? Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't realize we were live and we hadn't had a chance to even chat human to human. So I spent 30 odd years advising senior executives and boards of directors. I specialize in mergers and acquisitions, but focus on strategy and change. I've trained well over 30,000 executives and managers over the years. And how I got to the DoD is one of my mentees was in a position and said, we need someone like you to understand what are the obstacles to people uh, being open minded, to see that it's a spiritual war, that there's a lot of games that go on and they've been fooled by the media. And I never expected, I mean, I've been doing press media for Trump since 2016. And now my being here with you is only because one interview I did went viral.
Yeah,
I'm trained
and we all
as
heard that.
an organizational psychologist, and I went back to Stanford in 2017 to be to get certified as a political psychologist, because after working on the Trump campaign and setting up quite a few of the chapters of Republicans overseas, I realized that was an area that was lacking. And so I got accepted to Stanford's Institute for Political Psychology, which was fascinating. I was the only conservative out of 32, and people were from all over the globe.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you are 12 on this task force.
Yes.
Could you tell more about that? What are you doing? Is it
Well,
global?
uh, there's not much that I can say about the task force. I can tell you that we have an anthropologist on it, we have a forensic psychologist, we have people with a variety of skills to really understand the dynamics and the backgrounds of people.
Mm. And you also said in one interview that you didn't realize at first that there was so much evil, that people actually are evil.
Oh,
Could you?
absolutely. I mean, I said a very good friend of mine kept saying, "Well, these people are evil," and
Mm,
I would think, well, maybe we just think differently. And honestly, I don't know what created that aha moment for me, but once I had that aha moment, it really was clear to me this is a fight between good and evil. It is not political. It is not bipartisan, partisan, non-part. It is literally human to human, power and greed versus caring about humanity.
mm. Could you tell us a little bit more about this report that you write? Because I would like to tell you something that the Swedish Defense Research Agency, they actually came out with a report. And that report it was kind of interesting how they wrote, I mean, what this is all about. Um, but the key takeaways is actually that uh, some of the actors in this milieu want to change society with violence, others do not. So they wanted to see the connections between all this environment, with truthers and yeah, I don't know, different. And I think they wanted to measure if there was a risk for committing violence. Do
Well,
you
I,
think that
you asked me about reports I write and why I really started at the beginning of this interview wanting to set some ground rules because you and I hadn't had a chance to talk beforehand. There's a lot that I cannot talk about my actual work and what we do.
mm,
I can talk about my
British?
impressions of things. I can talk about what I think is going on. I can talk about what I've already reported on, but I can't
Mm,
be subjected to specific questions that I don't know if I can answer because I might have been told I can't.
yeah, of course. But then we can I just found this report so interesting because when I heard that you wrote reports and kind of took the temperature and measure this the Great Awakening, right?
Yes.
So that is what you do. Yeah, and I find this report. Yeah, I can see similarities because many of them, there are quotes in this report. They are mentioning these different podcasters and truthers, and I'm in this report, for example, and I find it really interesting. I believe that they are monitoring very, very closely uh, all the movements happening in all the countries.
Oh,
But do
absolutely.
you?
This
Mm,
is this is very much a global activity. Very
mm,
much a global activity.
yeah. And I can tell you to pull something like this off, and I mean, there are no civil wars. I mean, this is really a genius plan. I mean, there could have been so much more, yeah, suffering and arguments and violent confrontations also in doing all this change, right?
Well,
This is really.
I think what's important for people to understand because I receive a lot of DMs, a lot of messages on LinkedIn, um, a lot of calls from people that it's like, if it's supposed to get better, when is it going to get better?
Mm,
And let's back up a minute, because number one, when it was clear that 2020 was a fraudulent election,
Mm.
prior to the inauguration on January 20th, 2021, there were certain people online saying mass arrests are going to happen. Well,
Mm.
whatever a podcaster told you, they were given that information, but they weren't wrong. It was a false
Mm.
flag, and they didn't know they were part of the false flag, but they
No.
had to start getting those kinds of messages out. Unfortunately, people are still stuck on, someone said this was going to happen on September 15th, 2022, or
Mm.
July 4th, 2021. And
Yeah.
we have to forget all of that. The important thing to realize is that initially the US military had wanted to take Obama out. They have been
Yeah.
fully aware of the amount of corruption, machinations, misuse of power around the globe. And
Mm.
once they convinced Donald Trump to run for president, then they didn't have to do that. Donald
Mm.
Trump is the only person who has the backbone who could stand up to it. But this
Mm.
has been the evil around the globe going on for centuries. So
Mm.
we're just aware since 2016, maybe, but definitely since 2020. You know, the pandemic failed,
Mm.
and they thought they could turn us into serfs, but
Mm.
two things prevented it. One, Donald Trump being fully aware and doing Operation Warp Speed. Now, I know some people are all upset because of the side effects from the vaccination. But think about it this way. In December 2020, Pfizer knew that the vaccine didn't work. But by January 2021, Trump was no longer he's definitely commander in chief, but he was no longer in charge of the NHS or Fauci or the CDC or anything else. So anything horrible about the vaccines, that monkey belongs on the Biden administration's back. And I really, really want to drive that home, because I know a lot. Trump always gets blamed. He's the scapegoat for everything. Well, you know what? He's not the scapegoat for this. But in 1871, that treaty of 1871, it stripped the sovereignty from every single nation around the globe. So if they gathered in the city of London, the Dutch, the French, the Germans, all the bankers, all the people that controlled the trade and the money, if they did that, then we have to be patient to see how this plays out. You know, they know that there is a plan now to destroy them, the deep state, the evil ones, whatever. I just put them all in one basket. I call them the evil group. And we just have to sit by. If Donald Trump can be patient, if the military that's been aware of it far longer, if they can be patient and keep making their moves, then the next thing I have to say is we all need to be prepared, because it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. We might have another 3 to 6 months of turmoil.
Yeah, and then we have to be patient, and
We
I
have
feel
to
that
be
some are,
resilient. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, and many are. I mean, all these dates, it was shown by Derek Johnson, I mean, all these dates, that was actually referring to the Law of War manual. It was not actually dates. And also in the Q post, there are, it can be double meanings. So we have found many meanings in many of the, what we thought in the beginning was dates, that it referred to the Law of War. And when we saw that, it all makes sense. And it's kind of interesting that you were on the DoD, because they gave out this manual in 2015, and then they actually renewed it now in, I think it was July 2023.
Well, and see, you're well versed, well educated in understanding it. And for me, I speak to a lot of the people that have no idea what Q is, that have no idea. They just heard this date was going to happen, or maybe this. And so that's the audience that I often try to connect with online, so that I can help guide them to do their own research and come to their own conclusions. That's the only way to get through to them, not to tell them, not to argue with them, but to guide them.
I think many truthers, they don't realize that actually Q gave us a puzzle. I mean, if we read the Q post, that saved us a lot of time to connect the dots. And that's really what it is. It's a map. Yeah.
And I often tell people, when I tell the journalists, the media, if you just listen to Trump and you connect the dots over time, you would understand things instead of jumping all over him for every minute thing and every individual time he speaks.
Yeah. So, yeah, this system that you spoke about in one interview, that the deep state had with the Vatican's, the City of London, and Washington, D.C. I mean, how they had their own laws and their own police, their own military. It was like, yeah, sovereign countries, so to say. Could you elaborate?
I didn't, that's not exactly what I said. What I said was the Vatican, the City of London, and the District of Columbia are three sovereign states, in essence, countries. They are sovereign entities. Those three sovereign entities came together, and the US was in charge of the military, the City of London in charge of the finance, and the Vatican was the bank. And the City of London is the one that has been in control around the globe. I know we talk about the 12 or 13 families, or we talk about the Club of Rome, or Davos, or the World Economic Forum, but all of these, the United Nations, the League of Nations, all of that is an outgrowth of how the most powerful in the City of London. And in 1066, the king gave the City of London bankers complete freedom. You know, King Charles cannot go into the City of London unless he gets permission from the Lord Mayor of the City of London. It is a 1 mile square entity that is separate from the crown. The City of London is in charge of the Bank of England. The crown is not in charge of the Bank of England. And why people get confused is the City of London is often referred to as the crown because they became the Crown Corporation. They took all of England's gold. They've taken lots of countries' gold. Good thing Trump took ours back from the Vatican.
I think I saw that he also found some gold when he was in India. You know, Q, it was an anon that asked Q, do we have the gold? And then, yeah, he responded, they responded that, yeah, we have the gold. So I think maybe he found, because it was in the news outlet, that India found so much gold that they could fill up their reserve 5 times.
Wow.
So
Now,
I
see,
think
I
that,
don't
yeah,
follow Q. I can't
no.
answer Q. I am learning about Q. I'm like everyone else. I'm not an Anon. And there are great Anons who spend time educating me. I'm familiar with Q. Christian Patriot News always had been doing his podcast, and he would tie it in with Q. FCB does it, and there are several others. So that's when I'm familiar with it. But you are far more briefed about it than I am.
Yeah, it wasn't actually Q that wrote about that this was an Indian newspaper, and that was at the same time when Trump was. It's just my assumption, because Trump was in India, and then in the newspaper it said that they found so much gold, and then Q responded that yes, we have the gold. So I think that maybe the US found some of their gold as well. I mean, they have their hidings,
Don't make
in many
assumptions.
places.
No, do not make assumptions. 650 planes took our gold from the Vatican. Our gold was
Yeah,
not in any other country. And it is so wrong to make any assumptions, because it leads people to then start thinking about other things. Whatever
yeah, it
India
can be.
found, they found. But there's nothing to verify that. And India wouldn't have our gold. In all probability, it would be Britain's gold.
Mm. Yeah, they have been stealing from the people always. But what do you say about this Rome statue? I sent you the link. Sweden is part of that. And what's interesting with this Rome statue is that Sweden joined, I think it was 1998, and it went into effect in 2001. And that was exactly, when the war on terror started, with and this, I know that Trump wrote an executive order. He said that, the US is not part of that. You are not allowed to, is this court in Hague, but that is kind of interesting, because when when I read about this Rome statue, it says that in order to change this statue, that was, I mean, it was almost like the highest law, because they can just press charges to any Swede or in other countries, So they are
Are
kind
the
of over
Swedes
our
fully
law.
aware of that? Are the
No,
Swedes?
no, but I mean, it sounds so good, This is for crimes against humanity and so on. But how you change this statute is actually the policies of UN. So if you change in the policies of the UN, then you can change, in fact, many countries' highest law. So this was also one really big benefit of the Vatican, to have this Rome statute, because then they could just they could press charges. And Trump declared in one executive order that you are not allowed to go on American citizens, because we are not part of the Rome statue. So
What are the Swedes worried about? Are they aware of what is going on? Is there a large population that is fully aware of the changes globally?
I wouldn't. We hope we are 20%. I mean, the Pareto rule, 3% brings the 17%, and the 20% brings the 80%. I mean, we're working hard, and there are, we are many now, and we are working hard too. But we actually believe that we are under siege by the US military, because in 2017, this was the first time when the Swedes, they have a war um, delegation now. And this war delegation, this was the first time in 60 years that we had that. And this is if we come into a war or if it's worries in the country, so to say. And now, just a couple of weeks ago, they actually called in the government for a closed meeting. That was really interesting. So, I mean, we have the FRA law, we have, so that's why we have all these servers. So we have the Pentagon server, we have the Amazon server, we have a Facebook server. So because we have a different law here. So if you look at the Swedish Kings of Cyber War, it was an American article from 2013. There was a Swedish delegation at the NSA. So actually, since the Swedes, or Swedish companies had controlled the telecom infrastructure in 184 countries, Trump called them out in 2015, Ericsson, and you know the Ericsson report.
Yes.
And so he called them out, and then November 2019, actually, the DOJ took control. It was a settlement of $1 billion, but also they had to give up the control of the company for 3 years. But they prolonged it now due to all these families that are suing. You know, they gave the coordinates of the American soldiers to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Yeah. So that's why they have prolonged it. So they are still in control. And, you know, the same family, Wallenberg, they also control BIS, SEB Banken, and they also control NASDAQ. And NASDAQ is pretty interesting because they have the platform for all the stock exchanges globally. So
And
they are in control.
I don't think people around the globe realize how important Sweden is to all of this. Now, just because we don't really speak the same language, and you're doing such a fabulous job to interview me in English, you said you believe that the U.S. military is a siege. Now, do you mean that
Sweden is under siege?
Under siege,
I mean,
meaning our military has taken control?
Yeah, over Sweden, yeah. Due to this, I mean, it started actually with Telia in 2017 because the DOJ, they sentenced them due to corruption in 7 countries. And by that time, the Swedish government owned 40% of that company. That was 2017. Then 2019, then the DOJ sentenced Ericsson. And also the Swedish government was involved with that. So I actually believe that due to the criminality and the corruption, they have spread globally, you know, with the Stockholm syndrome and the Stockholm's bureaucracy. I believe that because we had a 4-star general here, and by that time we have a red castle, and the flag didn't go up, and that flag shows the sovereignty of Sweden. So that was a sign, but there has been so many signs, you know, for us, and we have followed this closely. So we don't say that, you know, lightly. We really truly believe that, and we also believe that we have evidence, and because we have also this jurisdiction. You know, Biden, he had his office in House of Sweden in Washington. And that is really interesting. Yeah. So, and if you look at the WikiLeaks papers, you can see that and he brought, you know, women into that, and that is Swedish law that is valid, you know, on our embassy in Washington. So they actually sold that house now. So it's pretty interesting.
Oh, wow. Now, do you think that the current government is working with the military?
I believe we have a continuity of government. We have something that we call a war delegation. That is kind of the counterpart of the occupying power, just as in Washington, D.C. So they are not taking any decisions. Also, we have the Speaker of the House, so to say. He went down to negotiate with Erdogan, and that's not his job unless we have a war delegation. And he did. So we have so many, we have collected all the bread,
the crumbs.
bread crumbs. Yeah, the crumbs. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
collecting there, and now it's more. Now it's more like panrish, hitting us in the head. So it's really obvious now. So.
Well, it's really wonderful that you're keeping track of those things and you're trying to educate the public about it. I don't know if your viewers are completely familiar with Trump's. First, he went to Saudi Arabia, and then he went on to Israel. We called it his world tour. So let me just summarize it a bit in case some people aren't aware of it. But after he left Saudi Arabia, it's important to note that the king at the time was then no longer the king. Mohammed, whatever his initials are, bin Salman, was put in.
Bin Salman.
But over 200 royals were arrested. I mean, if I got arrested and I was in the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh, I don't think I'd mind it too much. But they were all put in. And the former king had to pay $6 billion in restitution, but it was because Trump had all of the evidence about the child and human trafficking that had been going on. Then, of course, he continued to move on to Israel. People should look up the picture when he is with the Pope, and compare it to a picture of the Pope with Angela Merkel, and you will see how unhappy the Pope was because Trump came to take our gold and to tell him, no more. We're not part of this. We are bankrupting the Crown US Corporation, and we are moving on. I'm going to back up now back to the US. Just before the inauguration, there was Major General William Walker was interviewed on mainstream media, and he was asked why they were there. And he said that the ring around the DC being fenced in is because we're here to provide a smooth transition to the military. And it was announced right then and there. But did the mainstream media pick up on it? Did a lot of people pick up on it? No, they don't look at that significance. So for you educating me about the military being in control in Sweden, it makes me want to investigate even more what other countries where the people are aware that it's more of an alliance military. I don't want people to think that the US military came in to take over Sweden, that it's more of a global effort. They're the good guys and the bad guys, or the evil ones and the ones that want us to be free. But I haven't seen any executive orders that would relate to the ability for US to take control of the companies. Is there one?
Yeah, the law of war manual actually the law of war manual clearly says that you don't have to tell the public anything. You could do it.
Yes.
You could just occupy. Yeah. So we have read that law of war manual, and I think that this is for the best interest of the Swedish people not to know, actually, because I mean, what happened now is that we have a politician, and he went from the foreign department. How do you say? Yeah, so he is
From the
now
Foreign Office?
yeah, foreign office, and he is now working with Wallenberg because they have 16 foundations, right? So they have
Uh-huh.
so many companies. So what he is doing now, he's working that until February. And the newspaper say that he got a top job, but then at the same time they say that he's just on a short relief from from the political, so he's not really employed there. So we believe that what will happen is that Ericsson will be divided into 184 pieces, because you can't have one company in a cooperation with one government to control the telecom infrastructure, the internet, in 184 countries. That is also connected to the power grid, ABB, that is also global. So this is kind of, this infrastructure is, it contains the payments infrastructure with BIS, Bank of International Settlements. It's about the internet, it's about the power grids, it's about, so this is one system, and this was linked, this was together, so to say, with the Swedish government. So you couldn't really define where their company structure started and the government ended, or the other way around. So that's why I think, because since they have done that, we can see many things that have rolled up after that. So we are so many, and many of the top researchers will be in the space, and we will just open it for the Swedish first, and we want to show you really the history from the first central bank that was Swedish. We also have the first corporation. The first corporation is from 1288. Stora is a Swedish company. And since we have all this company structure and the foundations and the NGOs all around the globe, this comes, I mean, the first corporation comes from Sweden, and also the first central bank. So we have kind of, spread this corruption, because this is built on, this is really a crime syndicate. I mean,
It all
it's
is.
what,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. City of London,
Yeah.
the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the
Mm.
all of the names in banking. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I
mean, the dark net, they could have prevented so much, criminal activity. And it's really interesting, the FBI, they had this Encron chat, and that was Swedish cell phones. So this was a setup. So to organize crime, they collected the data. They invented Encron chat. They gave them specific telephones, and then they collected their data for 3 years. So this was really a sting operation. And then they simultaneously, in 12 countries, they took them down. And I don't think this was the top. That was already taken care of. But this was the mid. And what we can see now in Sweden, that we have lower players. So it's getting lower and lower and lower players that are put. That are being arrested now.
Yeah, exactly. And I understand that. I had great hope that our 2022 midterms would be arrests. No, it was to get the low hanging fruit.
Exactly.
Because there are the plotters, but then there are the implementers. And those implementers can't get away with it either. Cornelia, this should have been me having a chance to interview you to educate the American public about what is going on, what has transpired, and the role that Sweden has played, but more importantly, the multinationals have played and used perhaps Swedish law to really violate every other sovereign nation. And I hesitate when I say sovereign, because the reason that the U.S. lost its sovereignty with the Treaty of 1871 was because of the International Court. It came out, although Britain said that in our Civil War that they were neutral, they weren't. And so instead of us using our 14th Amendment to go after them, instead we accepted at that time like 10 million in retribution pay, but it had to have been executed and argued in the International Court, which then set the precedent around the globe that the International Court was in charge and not the courts of each individual nation. And so
when we're talking about this, we have.
I was just going to say, and so from what you've been saying and educating me about the laws, the first corporations, the first central bank that in Sweden, it seems to me that I need to learn about where that parallels with some other countries so that we can have a better understanding of what we're up against, because if it's the multinationals that are based in Sweden, what other entities are they using in a different sector or a different, not profession, but specialty that is also impacting our lives? Sounds like you guys have done just incredible research and reporting.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we are really working on it, and it's a lot. But I mean, we are doing actually historical spaces now for the American public, and I spoke yesterday. Yeah, so we are reaching out, and we are actually accepted as speakers now in some of the spaces. So we appreciate that really. I would also like to talk.
Go ahead.
I would I would like to talk about New Sweden. You know, the Swedes just recently they found out that the Swedish Vikings was in the US actually in the beginning of the year 1000. So the Swedish or the Nordic, because they were intertwined, the Nordic Vikings were actually in the US at least in the 1200s. So we were there long before the US became
Columbus?
a country. Yeah, long before that. That was in the 14th, but this was in yeah. But then we have New Sweden. You have heard about that, right?
No.
No, New Sweden was it was Delaware and Pennsylvania. It was an area in the US that was
in the US. Yes.
Yeah. So Delaware is this tax haven, right? And actually, that is kind of Swedish still, where Biden is, because if you have a corporation there, and you ask for data, they don't give it out. So this is kind of another jurisdiction, and that's why Biden, everybody, they hang out there, and then they have their office in House of Sweden in the Swedish embassy.
Wow.
So this is
So that's where Delaware corporations register in Delaware, and they took that structure from Sweden.
Yeah. We were there. It was Swedish, the territory, and actually the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania. That is actually the I believe it's Pennsylvania. This was in this area, and the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania, the first Supreme Court in the U.S., and the Supreme Court in Sweden was established at the same time. So we believe that the forefathers, when they wrote this Declaration of Independence, we believe that they thought about Axel Oxenstierna, because they had the Swedish there. They could already see the corruption. You know, we had this island Bartolomeo. So we had the first stock exchange for slavery, a slavery exchange, I have to say. So
Yeah.
they were trading slaves, and that was Swedish. It was a Swedish. So the Swedes love all these stock exchanges, these registers. I mean, the central bank of the central banks now is BIS, Bank of International Settlements. That's, you know, invented by the Swedish. same. I mean, Wallenberg has been operating for 200 years. This is the sixth generation now.
Now, when you
So
say
they are in
Ballenberg,
all the fields.
Ballenberg, is that with a B?
Double V,
W.
Wallenberg.
Wallenberg. And
Yeah,
so was
double.
Raoul Wallenberg part of that family?
Yeah, yeah. So that is not what it seems like, right? Uh,
Yes. So then is there,
because you had,
go ahead.
yeah, you had one of the brothers. He was the diplomat for Germany, and the other brother was the diplomat for the UK. So, and then they had the brother that saved all these Jews. So they were all related.
Yeah, because there's a big statue for him in Budapest.
Hmm. Yeah, I know.
Ah,
I know. And
so
but he had diplomatic immunity, exactly as his brothers. So they could give him a passport and a free passage.
and so were they the good side of the family, or they're still part of the corrupt side of the family?
Yeah. I mean, who did they say, right? I mean, they had, and there is a company called IG Farben, and that was partly, I mean, you have the Dulles brothers, you know, one was the
Yeah.
CIA and one was the forest. Yeah, that was their lawyers in the Boston negotiations. So they are put together with Warburg and Wallenberg. So that is one entity. They are working together. So yeah, and where were we?
Well, I brought up Raoul Wallenberger, and you were explaining the three brothers and the diplomatic immunity, and I said,
Yeah,
were they good, or they still were part of the bad ones? And you were explaining they were still part of the not good ones.
yeah, the Nazis, because the IG Farben was partly owned by the Americans, and they were the one with the Zyklon B, and they were building the concentration camps. So that was, and then you had the Boston negotiations, and the Dulles were representing Wallenberg, and they got freed. But I mean, they were majority owners of IG Farben, and they were also sponsoring Hitler.
And people
So
thought
when
the
you
Nazis,
talked about,
go ahead. I think we have a delay,
no,
so
sorry.
please go ahead.
Yeah. No, but you said in one interview you were talking about the UN and the World Economic Forum. No, not the World. You spoke about all these organizations as Nazi organizations, and it's really interesting when you look at the Q post and you look at Nazi. Just put that in. They tell you, Q tell you that New World Order does not say new. It stands for Nazi, and that never went away. Some went to the OSS that became the CIA. Some
Right.
went to Sweden, and so who was Raoul Wallenberg saving? I mean, they had their people. I mean, Soros, he has open societies. In the board of directors, you have Sachs, Daniel Sachs. He's part of the Wallenberg family. He's married into to that family, so they have representation. They are also on the board of EQT, you know, this big investment firm. So
Yeah.
they have people, yeah. And all of these corporations, these tech giants, in order to be able to be on the internet, they has to pay license fees to Wallenberg because they control the core technology of the whole internet.
And people aren't aware of how the centers of power have been handed down generation after generation after generation. People don't realize that there are over 700 ancestors in the ancestry tree of the Rothschilds. They kept reproducing to take over more power in other sectors, in other spheres of the government and things. Yes. But you have really enlightened me. And you've expanded my thinking to really wonder how much is going on and what are the other relevant countries that play such an important role as Sweden does, but also why has this been hidden? Why do we just think that Sweden's this little country that
Neutral.
has more women on the board and, is more liberal and, whoa, thank you. Thank you very much.
Sweden and Switzerland, they become neutral. And Wallenberg also has a company called Saab. And Saab previously made cars, right?
Yes.
But now they are really advanced weaponry system. Okay, so they are selling weapons. So we have the King of Sweden. He is neutral. He has immunity, of course. So he goes with them, and the family goes with them to Afghanistan. So we had military in Afghanistan for 20 years, and the advisor to the president, he was Swedish. So when he flew with cash, now then immediately see that stop giving aid to Afghanistan, because there were no more people to bribe, right? So they are selling. Neutral actually means that you can sell information, because they are the sixth eye in five eyes, because they can see everything, right? Yeah. And because so they can elaborate. I mean, if you have that leverage with all the information, you control the internet, you control all the payment structure, the core technology of all communications globally, then I mean, and you also can sell weapons. So they have instigated wars. I mean, in the Boston negotiation, they were actually, that one of the charges was that they had started this World War II. So they were, but they went free, because of Dulles brothers, that and their firm, that and actually just a couple of years ago it was still that firm, that were representing them in the US. So, and now you have this what Michael Ray Corey is talking about. You have all these 800 families, with the soldiers, that they actually sold the data, but but to Al Qaeda and ISIS,
right,
about the
about the location
but also
where our soldiers were. Yes.
Yeah. So this is what they do. I mean, they have done this forever. You have so open societies. I mean, Soros, he has all his quantum foundations or quantum funds. The bank he uses is SEB in Sweden. And on his board of directors, you have Daniel Sachs, the representative from Wallenberg. So and what Trump did, actually, because Trump knows all of this, what he did was that, I believe it was 2020, he claimed that open societies had to be, they were considered as an American company, so they couldn't hide with being foreign anymore.
Yeah.
So, and that's why that is why he had to close all these offices, because he has no, I mean, he's under a different jurisdiction now, because now you have, So I mean, Trump knows all of this. So when he went out in 2015 and said that there is a company called Ericsson, and they are selling telecom equipment to regimes that are using that in order to control and surveillance their own people, he knew exactly what he was up against, because right after that, he said that Ericsson, he claimed that as a national security threat. And then you have Pompeo, he went around the world and signed this clean internet, 150 countries signed, but one country didn't in the European Union, and that was Sweden. I don't believe that we could because we were on the siege. That's my. I don't believe we are a sovereign.
Right. You don't believe you're sovereign, but you do believe you're part of the global alliance?
Yeah, I believe we had no choice. So when we talk about this military, the initial 17 countries military and intelligence, I have read that Sweden is part of that, and that makes sense because we know that we have all the news outlets. Yeah, I have to tell you this because Ericsson are under control by the DOJ and Space Force, but they also control Red Bee Media, and they have 500 TV stations. So actually, the staff in the Swedish, how do you say? It's the state-owned television company.
Right.
Yeah, they are war. They are declared in war. So they are, how do you say, krigsplacerad? Yeah, the audience have to help me. So yeah, so they are actually they are under continuity of government, and that has been in the Swedish. They are war located. So when you have a war,
yes.
then you have to be prepared to just serve the nation in any way possible. Yeah.
They've been alerted. They're on call. In other words, we would say if they're under continuity of government and they've been alerted, they're on call when they need to act.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now,
so that we know.
Are they deceiving the public? Because we know with continuity of government in the US that they're still doing fake news and deceiving the government.
Yeah. I believe that they have 3 different instructions, so to say. Business as usual, contradictive news to make people think, and more truth. So I believe that's their instruction, because sometimes when you go in on the same page, there could be 2 articles that say, it's contradict each other.
Well, at least you have that. At least you have that people can see 2 sides. In the US, forget it. It is the example I give is they take a compassionate attitude to a man that was just arrested. What they leave out is he was arrested 6 times before for the same crime. Exactly. So they play on the emotion as if the police are unfair, but this is a hardened criminal. And that's how the deception goes on.
And if we talk a little bit about Ukraine, this is really interesting because we had 3 politicians that went there in 2014. Carl Bildt, the bloody Swede, he's called, and he is working directly with Wallenbergs. You have Göran Persson or Jan Eliasson. Those 3 went to Ukraine, and they said that they are working with them to develop economics and democracy, right? In the Ukraine. Yeah, how did that go? Not so good. And actually now, when they had this closed meeting, there is a village in the Ukraine called Gammal Svensk By. So actually that was partly Swedish before Ukraine, right? But when this war delegation called for this closed meeting, they had the vice spokesman of the Ukrainian parliament on the line in a Swedish closed, and that made us think like, okay, we have a situation here with the war delegation calling in the Swedish parliament and the government, and then you call the vice speaker of the House of Ukraine. So,
Yeah.
when we talk about Burisma and Biden and all this bribery, and Sweden was on top of that. I can tell you, we were part of that. And in that sense, the politicians in Sweden, or the king, they are like the sales, the marketing and sales division of Wallenberg.
Ah.
Mm.
Well, this should have not been an interview with Dr. Jan Halper-Hayes. It should have been Dr. Jan Halper-Hayes learning from Cornelia Unfiltered. You are an
I'm so sorry.
wealth of no, do not apologize, because I actually think that this was superb that it went this way, because you've opened my eyes, but I think more and more people need to have the understanding that you have and all the work that you've done. I can come on another time and talk about the things that I care about from a psychological standpoint, but I think this was the timing of you being able to educate me was exceedingly important. Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, we have Michael Ray Corey and also the shaman, Jake Chansley.
Yes.
First, in one interview, he spoke about the Ericsson report. But then with Bennett Johnson, after I did an interview with him, he also spoke about the Wallenberg family. And now he actually talks about IG Farben as well. So you have a lot of ambassadors in the US that knows this, that have really, there are not many, but they have an audience, and you have an audience. So what we try to do is, I didn't mean for you to come here and for me to educate you, but we really want to close up with you and talk to you about how this all is put together, and Sweden's role in the US, the Swedish role in the Palestine conflict, in the Ukraine, and with the banking slavery system, and the Rome Statute, and how everything is linked together, and yeah. So that's.
Please don't feel bad. Don't feel bad at all, because we let the conversation go where it needed to go. I get to talk. I've got 3 more podcasts. I can spout my stuff, but the fact that I had the opportunity to learn from you here is so valuable that I can't thank you enough.
Thank you. I would love to show you a Q post, if you can see my screen now.
I can.
And this is this is almost the only post that we can find about Ericsson. And this is post 4024 from April 30th, 2020. Sometimes you can't tell the public the truth. You must show them. A deeply entrenched enemy who controls the vast majority of communications is only defeated by game theory. Q.
Whoa.
So this is there is one company that controls vast majority of all communications, but they are not. And also Trump said that there are people in the shadows that you have never heard about. So, and he also called them out, and I can play that as well, when he called them out, the Ericsson, and also how the Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, they gave him $750,000 for a speech right when Hillary Clinton, this was during the sanctions of Iran. Yeah, and she put them off the sanction list and said that they can police themselves. So she excluded them from the list, and Trump called them out on this, and then he got 750,000 for this speech. But then we have all these Swedish companies and the government and the aid money that go to Clinton Foundation. So I believe that they are paying off for the service that she put them on the sanction list.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we have to find another time to continue this and to
Mm.
plan beforehand so that I can have a bunch more questions for you so that we can educate together the
Mm.
public. But this was very, very enlightening for me. And your connections with things and your ability to bring it together is absolutely admirable. Um, I'm really going
Thank
to
you.
have to say I've got a hard stop, and I'm sorry that we have to bring this to a closure for now. Um,
We hope that you would come to our after talk in the space, but don't you have time for that?
I don't. I have 4 podcasts today, and
Okay.
I wasn't given any advance notice about it. Um, and so I have to quickly grab some lunch, and then at 1 o'clock
Mm.
I'm on again. 1 o'clock my time. But
Okay.
that doesn't mean we will not have a reprise very soon.
I really hope so.
Oh, definitely, definitely. You're exceedingly impressive, and your commitment to getting all of this information out. Um, I wish you, wish isn't the right word. I encourage you to keep fighting strong because you seem to be doing an incredible job already.
Yeah, thank you. We are a good group here. You have yeah, we spoke a little bit in the space with after the interview with Derek.
Yes.
Yeah, and so we have Carl Norberg, and he has been the grand old man of conspiracy theories, according to the haters and trolls. But he has been, talking about this for 20 years. So, and he was an ex-military in
Ah,
intelligence. Yeah. And we also have Mott Bombadil that you have met in the space, and Gestrand. And I wanted you to meet all them, but do you have time later tonight, is today just full?
no, it isn't. I've got 2 that are in central United States. I have South Africa,
Hmm.
and and, um, and I have Australia. So I'm not going to be sleeping.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But do you have any more time today for maybe 1 hour in the space, or so
Oh,
the Swedish patriots could ask questions, or is it just a bad day?
it literally is a bad day. See, it's just one after the other after the other.
Mm. Oh, okay. Yeah. But
And I need little breaks in between because I have to get my head around what I'm talking about for the next audience as well.
yeah, I know.
And I have a very sweet puppy dog that needs to be walked 4 times a day, so he has to be fitted in. Um,
Yeah.
so I wish, send me the link if I can pop in for 10 minutes or so. I'll do that, but I've got I might be able to, but I don't want to make any promises because I've got to eat. I got to make my lunch. I got to take care of my dog, and I got to get ready for my next one at 1:30.
Yeah.
So I got 45
Okay.
minutes. Okay. All right.
Yeah, we will start it immediately, and I will send you the link. So if
Okay.
you are able to when
Right.
you you are so welcome. I'm really truly honored to have you here, and we follow you all of your interviews very closely. And I know that's this also. I did the Swedish voiceover for The Greatest Show on Earth. So
Oh, good for
yeah.
you.
Yeah, so
Oh,
the Swedish audience, they are up to date with this this tour that Trump did, all the executive orders and the continuity of government evolution. So we are really up to speed with Derek Johnson's work and your work, and we just appreciate you, and we feel so connected to you.
I can tell, and I again thank you for educating me, and frankly, you did one heck of a job better than Michael Curry, because I spent 2 hours on the phone, and I understand more from talking with you than I understand in what he explained to me. So I'm going to tell him that too.
He's so polite. I mean, he's really polite. You know, I'm more like you, a straight shooter. So he's really polite. I love him for that. But you know,
I do
he's
too. But he gets on his tangents, and he's so passionate about it all. But you really know the facts. You know the connections. You bring it together. So thank you. I'm gonna tell him that he might need to have a tutorial with you. So God bless, and
God bless you. Thank
we'll
you
be
for
in
your
touch soon.
service. Yeah, we will. I will send you the link. Thank you so much,
Please.
Dr. John Halper-Hayes.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.